In our case study, the man was not acting of his free will because he was unconscious. From the view of soft determinism, your actions are considered unfree when they are caused by external agents or causes, or they were caused by a psychological state the agent cannot control and does not approve of. In our case, the man was caused to act by internal factors such as depression, anxiety, and guilt, which, when mixed with his history of sleepwalking, caused him to commit the crime. Also, since he was not aware of his actions, he could not have approved of them, and thusly they were unfree. Lastly, he cannot be held morally responsible for his actions because he could not have acted differently. Principle of alternate possibilities. It would be pointless to blame someone for something they couldn't have helped doing. In terms of personal identity, one might ask, why wasn't he able to stop himself? Was it actually him? If he was unconscious, what was the controlling factor? It was him performing the actions because in the sleep state his brain was using memory of his in-laws' address and his existing anxiety and depression, which shows there was memory continuity to some degree, and because it was the same body and brain, there is also body continuity. Since it was him, it is a good question of why didn't he stop himself. It is because while asleep, his body and mind was in an uninhibited state, almost like being drugged to the point where you don't have control of your actions and possibly don't know you're doing them, which is true in this case. Depending on your position on the mind-body problem, you will have different views of this case. For the sake of this argument, we will be arguing from the position of epiphenomenal property dualism. This view can agree with the position that the man was not responsible for his actions because any experience he would have had of the action would have just been a byproduct of his brain performing the action, and since he was asleep, his mind was not able to receive those experiences. Objections to our views include the argument from the libertarian, who would say that we always have control of our actions, everything we do is caused by our own will. For this case, you can argue that the man clearly did not want this to happen, as he was distraught about his actions and has no memory of them happening, which means it was not an act of his will. Another argument is that it may not have been him because his soul may not have been there, because if it had, he would have stopped or God would have stopped him. This argument relies heavily on an individual's religious beliefs, but I will try to reply with another question. Do you consider a drunk person to be responsible for their actions? Whether or not you do, you still consider the drunk person to be themselves. Also, if we accept the concept of souls, then this is not the first time God has allowed someone to commit a crime, so it is still him. Lastly, if it is his soul or mind was not there, then he wouldn't have had the memories or base understanding of where his in-laws were, and his anxiety and depression would not have been able to affect his actions. The last main arguments come from the different variations of beliefs surrounding the mind-body problem. The substance dualist will argue that because the mind and body are two completely different substances, the fact that he was asleep should have had no effect on his mind, and the interactionist substance dualist will say that it was his